Good evening, my fellow Canadians. Good evening, YouTube. um, Earlier today, I posted a video on Harjit Singh Sajan um, having, participating in a party glorifying and celebrating the Chinese Communist Party. And I thought I'd make a second video to remind myself and my viewers about how Trudeau and his government have ignored the situation of the Canadian who is currently um, on death row, you could say. Um, so, for those of you who don't know, this BC man here was supposed to get 15 years for the penalty of drug smuggling crystal meth, a charge which he disputed, and he said he was framed. Now, I'm sort of inclined to believe that because ever since the CFO of Huawei has been arrested by Canadians, China's animosity towards Canada has grown great. So, anyway, the Canadian Robert Lloyd Schellenberg went to the Court of Appeals in China to see if he could get his sentence overturned or at least reduced. And in turn, the judge handed him the maximum sentence allowable, which was the death penalty. So he will be executed. So I have the clip here for you to play. All credit to Global News for the clip. Oh boy, okay. There's an ad. But all I can say is that this defense minister honoring the Chinese Communist Party, whilst we have one Canadian who's on death row, here we go, and another scheduled, a second one that may be on death row soon. This kind of behavior is just absolutely nonsense, but I'll show you the clip here.
Shown on state TV, Canadian Robert Schellenberg enters court to learn his fate. The death sentence under China's notoriously strict drug laws. In a statement, Schellenberg's aunt says, "It is our worst case fear confirmed. Our thoughts are with Robert at this time. It is rather unimaginable what he must be feeling and thinking. It is a horrific, unfortunate, heartbreaking situation." Authorities say Schellenberg was involved in a 2014 plan to smuggle 222 kilograms, nearly 500 pounds, of crystal meth to Australia by hiding packages inside tire liners. In 2016, he was sentenced to 15 years and painted as an accomplice during the first trial. He said he was a framed tourist. The drugs were seized, but the language at Schellenberg's sentencing suggested he not only smuggled drugs internationally, but was the main offender.
The speed of it struck many people, myself including us. And
on behalf of Canadian facing the fires, the Canadian government truly, as a government.
So Trudeau goes on basically not answering much. The families of Schellenberg, essentially wanted to barter a deal to get him freed. And though Trudeau goes on to say that the Liberal government has increased its ability through the law to negotiate for the release of Canadian prisoners and so on, and hostages and whatnot. His government has done next to nothing to ensure Schellenberg's release. So now we have the second Canadian that faces execution, and that was already in April of this year, so several months ago. That's about 6 months ago. No, actually it's 5. So in short, the Chinese are declaring war against Canada. And I'd show you this clip here. You can see, oh, they're going to make me get the ad again. Okay, well, the important thing to keep in mind is this. Canadians are dying in China, and Hong Kong is trying to hold a peaceful protest in order to fulfill independence from China. So there are 300,000 Canadians in Hong Kong that have been warned either to leave for their own safety, for the well-being of their lives, in order that they probably won't be captured by police or, you know, shot in the street or something like that that could happen during the protesting. So what I'm saying is that China is a rather dangerous place for Canadians these days. And for us to be entertaining this propaganda gala, one of our prominent ministers, the Minister of Defense, that's a high-profile position, is absolutely irresponsible. But more so, it's a betrayal of Canadians. So all I can say is that I feel very much that the Chinese don't want to cooperate with us unless we release the CFO of Huawei immediately. And if we obey the pact that we've made with the Americans, that simply cannot happen. We can only release her into American custody. But at the moment we keep holding her. So so my fellow Canadians, again, this is another bit of poor government management and irresponsibility and betrayal, because if we want to say we're multicultural, we also say that we're a country that represents peace. So we cannot abide and we cannot endorse a country that is enthusiastically trying to execute our citizens. And I do believe that the charges brought upon Schellenberg may be falsified, because under torture in a Chinese prison, he'll say anything to get free, and they may have promised him something or blackmailed him or tortured him to say something, but he's on death row, and like a person in that position will say anything. He's probably scared to death. But I just want to say to my fellow Canadians that had the government managed this situation better, you know, it may not have come to this point. But I don't believe that Canada's relationship with China right now is a relationship at all. I believe that when you start executing our citizens, you are at war with us. And I don't see any other way to look at it. Because, if you murder our citizens, that's it. That's the last straw. If China had started murdering Americans, Trump would have a very strong answer against something like that happening. So, as governors as the government of this country, of the government of any country, you have a responsibility to your citizens, and you simply cannot, you must not let their lives be destroyed for any reason, and you must do everything in your power to ensure that those lives are not lost, and they haven't. And now, a second Canadian, there are 13 Canadians that are, to my knowledge, detained since we've captured the Huawei exec. So, but many Canadians' lives are in danger in China due to the situation in Hong Kong. So, I thank you for your time and attention. This case is more for me. I really wanted to refresh my memory in order to better remember what's going on with China.
Extreme concern to.
So, in short, what I see is that the Chinese have essentially declared war on us for the Huawei executive, and we have no intention of executing her. That's not the Canadian way. You can say that she's basically on house arrest, so she's very safe and protected not by Canadian police but by bodyguards, I believe, hired security and whatnot that ensure that she doesn't leave and so on, but they don't interfere with her. It's not inhumane or anything. It's definitely not a prison. So I have this last clip, and I'll leave you there, of the Chinese speaking of our relationship.
中方已经同意，加方任命的新的驻华大使来华履新。我们期待他为推动中加关系回到正常轨道发挥积极作用。当前中加关系遭遇严重困难，责任完全在于加方。加方很清楚当前中加关系的症结，我们敦促加方反省错误，认真对待中方的严正立场和关切，立刻释放孟晚舟平安回国。
So there you have it. The Chinese don't feel any guilt about what's happened, and they blame the entirety of the failure on our side. So I will leave you with that. Good evening and good night.